bear with me. Today our guest speaker is Rhonda Thomas. She's actually she's the CEO of National Business Concepts, an Oklahoma-based accounting and consulting firm. I couldn't believe this part. She's had over 30 years. When you see her passion and stuff, she seems a lot younger than that.
I'll pay you.
One thing I did notice, really cool, she has a degree from Southern Nazarene here in Bethany, so that's really cool. I've heard her speak a couple times, so I'm really excited to hear that. Kind of turned over to you. I'm not the best introduction, so hopefully we'll get that going.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here. We'll probably have some more coming in a little bit late, so we kind of bumped this down to 11:30, so some more people get here a little earlier and get your food ordered. So appreciate you guys being here. Rhonda.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, officially. I'm going to pass these out as well. Quite frankly, talking about budgets is kind of a boring thing, right? Most of you guys, if you have a household, then budgets is kind of a boring topic. But I'm going to try my best to make it as exciting as possible. And especially if you have a small business, I think this is going to be a value for you. First of all, just a couple of quick facts about myself. I actually have one son. They told me I can't have kids. I couldn't have kids, and I do have one son. He's 25. He used to play drums in the Thunder. He's an avid drummer. It's the thing I would consider, like say we smoke to get rid of stress, or say we drink or whatever. I would say that drumming for him has been his passion. He actually, I'm not going to go on about that. Never mind. Drumming is his passion, and it's an unusual thing. He just had a birthday, and we went out of town last week. So that's why it's so also fresh in my mind, looking at the old videos. Other interesting fact is I speak three languages. I speak French, Spanish, and English. My older brother actually speaks 8 languages. I only speak 3. Other interesting fact is kind of boring. So I am divorced, raised my son as a single mom, and that journey has taken me to many different places and have actually allowed me a lot of different experiences. So let's talk a little bit about budgets, the boring stuff. Can I borrow one of those yellow ones?
Yes, please.
Extra one? Oh, I've got some extras. So typically, what we find in our personal lives is that we try to manage our lives, our personal life. I'm talking from a personal standpoint, and then I'm going to talk about this from a business standpoint. What we find is that most of us have some form of steady income. So it would be typically a W-2 type income, or you're working for an employer. A budget would be appropriate, or would most likely be relevant to your life if you have some kind of a predictable income and predictable expenses. So if you ask me what is a budget is really the management of those numbers, whether income or expenses, the management of those numbers, if it is mostly predictable. So my paycheck is $5,000 a month, my mortgage is X, my car payment, you go down the list, right? And so what I did is I just brought you a copy if you're interested in doing one for your own personal purpose. It kind of outlines just about most of the things that are common in a budget. Then you can actually put in your salary or your wages and figure out what your monthly expenses are. And it typically helps to keep you on task. So instead of going out and spending $1,000 on meals this month, my budget says I can only spend $100, and you're going to do your best to stay within those guidelines. That's really what a budget is for. It's to help you kind of stay within the guidelines, not spend more than you actually make, right? That's kind of the concept of a budget. Let's talk about the concept of a budget when it comes to a business. It's a little bit different, right? A business, basically, your income could be $100,000 a month, and it could be $50,000 a month. But the typical business still has the same challenge as if I were actually operating my household, is that I have these expenses that are pretty predictable. I've got employees, I've got rent, I've got utilities, I've got marketing expenses, advertising, whatever. You've got all of those expenses that are pretty predictable in a typical business that never seem to go away. And so the objective of most business owners is to have enough income coming in to at least break even. Break even simply means that I have enough income to cover my expenses. The bottom line at the bottom, when you get done, is right about even. If you open your green folders, you'll see that I included kind of a pseudo budget outline for a business. How many of you guys realize that most businesses, when they first get started, they have more expenses than they do income? You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah, we all know. So this kind of gives you an idea of typically what will be covered on the expense side of a business. Of course, employee costs, typically you'll be doing everything, you cut everything else in order to pay your employees. And then your typical expenses, you can see office costs, your marketing costs, and then basically you come down to the bottom line, which is your net profit. Income minus expenses is going to be equal to your net profit. I want to shift your thinking in terms of how you think about a budget. Because as we talked about before, a budget is basically the management of those pretty much predictable, whether they're variable or whether they're fixed expenses. And then what happens is at the end of the month, you sum up all your income, you sum up all your expenses, and the bottom line either tells you if you're making a profit or not. The average business owner, though, if they look in their bank account, their bottom line may say they have a profit, but their bank account basically says they're broke. And so I want to help you shift your mindset as to how you think about budgets, how you think about a projection going forward, as we think about profit first. Most of us are on that hamster wheel, right? We're trying to make the bills, that's all we're doing, and we're managing typically our businesses by the bank account. If you're in business, you know what I'm talking about. Every morning we get up and we look at the bank account to see what's available. How many of you guys know it's the most dangerous way to run a business? Is by looking at your bank account every morning. The typical way that the average successful business owner is managing their business is by the numbers. All of the numbers, understanding your numbers, and also beginning to put yourself as a business owner first. So your budget now looks like this. Income minus profit. What is the below the line are my expenses. Isn't that crazy? What are you talking about? I mean, I literally, when I first understood this concept, I was like, nah. But all of my clients are now on the profit first strategy, and we're actually going to walk through some of that today. And it's because they have shifted their thinking. So by putting your profit first, you are now driving your business to be sure that you're covering your expenses. First out is your profit. Last out are your expenses. Is that wild? That's wild. I have not lost one single client through COVID, and they're all on the profit first strategy. And I'm going to tell you exactly how we do it. That kind of wild? It is kind of wild, right? To even think that way. So first off, you're going to pay yourself Next, you're gonna make sure you have all of your bills covered, all of them. Not some, but all. We're gonna get off that train that says, at the end of the month, there's no money in the bank, and you first must change your mindset. Must change your mindset. I have clients who come to me and basically they have not taken money home to their families, behind on their mortgages, because the first and most important thing was to make sure their expenses were covered. How many of you guys know that you could have $1 million of income and still be broke? But your net number is still going to be in the negative because of the way you're managing the business. And what I've found by implementing the Profit First strategy, especially for my clients that are scatterbrained, I have quite a few of them. Sorry, they're all guys. But they have a genius. These guys, they find this little niche that they work in. I've got quite a few of these guys. And they make money, tons of it. But they're unable to be disciplined enough to manage it. So we put them on Profit First. Let's talk about what the strategy is on Profit First. I lost my glasses again right here. The strategy of Profit First is basically getting yourself some buckets, right? Those buckets are going to be typically 3 buckets. You're going to have an account for your operating expenses, of course. But first, we're going to establish an account for profit. What's the profit used for? The profit is used to create more money. Your profit line is used, you employ that money to create more money. That's the only purpose of the profit line. Now, unfortunately, you think you own all your money, but Uncle Sam says you've got to pay your taxes. So we're going to have a special account just for taxes. I warn my clients, I said, if you take money out of that account until it's time to pay your taxes, I'm done. Because typically what happens, they come to me at the point where they're owing tons and tons of money. They don't have a plan. So what we do is we create a plan. This is your tax account, and every time a dollar comes in, we're going to determine a percentage, and I'll kind of show you guys how to do that. We're going to determine a percentage that you're going to put into each one of these accounts so that you don't have to worry about taxes at the end of the year. We're going to be disciplined to make that happen. You don't have to worry about profit. You're going to be disciplined to make that happen. You want to actually have an owner's compensation account as well. If you've got a wife, if you're a guy, or if you've got a husband, or if you've got kids and you're not taking money home as a paycheck, not a good plan. Can't stay in business that way. Not a good plan. So we're going to have an account for owner's compensation. If you've got employees, you better have a separate operating account for employee compensation, right? You just got to. That's just the most prudent thing to do if you're thinking in terms of a budget, you're thinking in terms of running a business. So that every time a dollar comes in, same thing, that percentage is going to be put aside for employee compensation. You're going to have your owner's compensation, you're going to have your tax account, you're going to have your profit account. And then finally, you're going to have your operating expenses account. So typically, depending on the business, my clients would have an extra 3 or 4 accounts. Now, it's key that the profit account and the tax account not have any kind of no online contact with your profit. You want to make it as difficult as possible to go take money out of that account. As easy as possible to put it in, as difficult as possible to take it out, right? No online access is best. And typically that's a personal account. Credit unions, I try to recommend that maybe you open up a credit union account so that it's a little bit less convenient, so to speak. All right? So that's your tax account and your profit account, those 2, key. Now your business accounts are going to be your operating account, your income account, your owner's comp account, and then if you have employees, you're going to have your employee compensation account. I actually bank with Bank of Oklahoma. I've really been reconsidering that, but that's another story. I've been banking with Bank of Oklahoma, and I literally have it set up, and I have them all labeled online. And I operate that very sad way. Every time I get a dollar, it's divided by a certain percentage. How do I know what percentage I need to use? And if you look at this sheet, you'll see I provided you with an instant assessment. And if you look on the back side, it gives you a little worksheet that you can do on your own. You don't have one? Here you go. I got plenty extras. You need one?
No, I'm not smart enough. She doesn't.
You're not smart enough. She's doing all the numbers. Now notice at the back, it gives you kind of an example of, percentages based on the size of your business. Do you see that at the top? It gives you, if you're at 0 to 250K, these percentages are not fixed. It really takes an assessment of your financials. Like you go back for the last 2 years, look at your financials, and you're going to find your real revenue. Typically, your real revenue is going to be your income minus those direct costs or cost of goods sold, right? Then you have your income before your expenses. Does that make sense? That's your real revenue. And then your profit. Again, you're going to assess your business on several things. If you have employees, how much money do I need to make so I can cover my household expenses, right? Because you're not paying your household expenses with your business account, right? If you're in business, right? You're not paying I'm going to say it again. Your household budget is different to your business budget. So what you're doing is you're paying yourself a salary so that you can salary or draw so that you can pay your home, your house budget, and you get yourself disciplined to doing that. Otherwise, your wife's not going to be happy, your kids aren't going to be happy, and you're not going to be happy, right? That's how it works. So the profit is going to be based on that assessment. How much money do I have coming in every month? How much is going to be allotted to employees? How much is going to be allotted to my personal income and my operating expenses? So you're going to do that analysis, and you're going to come up with those totals. Now, there's a good chance when you get done doing that, you may not have enough income coming in. And that's the point. The point is you've got to figure out where I need money coming in, where the increase needs to be so I can get busy. So we know for a fact, let's say our profit margin is going to be 5%. Just hypothetically, I'm going to put away 5% every time I get a dollar. Dollar comes in, $5 profit account. Let's say $10 goes to the tax man, right? That's 15%. And then the percentage, you're going to allocate the remaining percentage of every dollar that comes in so that each bucket begins to fill out. This gives you a true assessment of where you need to be in terms of increased income, not necessarily the gross income, but the income before expenses, the real revenue. Right? Because you got to have all of your what I would call direct costs. If you have cost of goods sold, you got to have all of those covered before you can analyze this. Does that make sense? Have I lost anyone? Okay. All right, and then you're going to come up with those percentages, and you're going to start living by it. This gives you a real, true picture of, okay, and it's not so much the gross income that has to be increased, right? Because I can make $1 million and still be broke, right? What's important is going to be, what's that real revenue? What's that real revenue that I'm working with? That's what you need to increase. Your gross profit your gross profit before your expenses need to be increased. Does that make sense? So those are the numbers that you're working with. You're going to determine what those percentages are going to be, and you're going to get disciplined at doing it. This literally shifts your mindset to begin to come up with the strategies to increase your gross profit so that you can meet every area of your budget. I know it sounds weird, but I'm telling you right now, I do not have a single client that I've lost through COVID, and more importantly, none of them are in the red. And it's because they have just, and I'm telling you that it was tough at first. I have one particular guy, bless his heart, totally ADD. I said, you just gotta keep going, you gotta keep going. And he just started getting into that discipline every month, every week that he gets income in, he just kept doing it. And the bucket started filling up. So he was no longer, in debt to the IRS or in debt. So he just kept working on increasing his income. Once we got the discipline down for all of those expenses that are part of our budget, right? Once that discipline and the bucket started filling up, then we can focus on the true area of our business, which is increasing either the sales or business to get that gross profit to where we need it to be. That's how I went from a very traditional budget scenario, income minus expenses equals your profit or loss. Most of the times it's a loss, right? That's not what I'm talking about. To now where my focus is income, profit, and then my expenses. Do I handle each one of those right now? Personally in my business? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's all it is discipline. It's really just getting yourself disciplined every single month, doing the same thing every single month. Oh, I'm gonna have to have a little bit more money here. You go out and you look for another sale or another point of business, but you're really just literally implementing strategies. Now, a couple of things. We talk about budgets, we talk about projections. Anybody know what the difference is? Okay, so I talked about budgets being pretty predictable. Projections is something almost like a moving, working document. It's not static, and it's based on the strategies that you implement. So let's say, I'm going to have a campaign over the next 90 days. I anticipate maybe we'll have an additional 20% in sales. That may or may not happen. So you start projecting out, what am I going to need? What are the expenses that are related to that? But most importantly is if we can shift our mindset to start thinking, what am I projecting my profit to be? Very different thinking. What am I projecting my profit to be this year? What's it going to be? What's my profit going to be this year? Nobody thinks that way. What's my profit going to be this year? All I'm trying to figure out is what's my income going to be, and am I going to be able to cover expenses? That's one way to live. But I'm suggesting to you that the new way to think, and a lot of businesses are incorporating this profit first. The information's on there. You can go online, buy the book. I don't make a dime off of this. But I do know it has been very successful for all of my clients. All of them. I had one lady I thought for sure, she's going to go under during COVID. I thought that was going to be the one client I lost. She increased her income. She increased, and it's just because she's gotten disciplined at doing the things. Hey, I got to get more sales, more marketing, more advertising. So there you go.